Have you ever looked around one day and realized the people you thought would stay forever are gone? Friends who once couldn't spend a day without talking to you suddenly become strangers. Family relationships become distant. Someone you deeply loved leaves this world. You move to a new city where no one knows your name. Everything familiar disappears. Your heart asks questions that seem impossible to answer. God, why? Why did you let them leave? Why couldn't things stay the way they were? Why does life have to change so much? If you've ever cried these prayers, know this: you are not alone. Every believer reaches seasons where life feels like it's falling apart. But here's the incredible truth. Sometimes God removes people before he introduces the right people. Sometimes he closes one chapter because another chapter is about to begin. Sometimes he allows loss because he sees a future that we cannot yet imagine. Today we're going to discover why God allows people to leave, why life changes so suddenly, why we experience painful endings, and how every event, even the ones that hurt the most, is somehow woven into God's perfect plan. Think back 5 years. How many people who were part of your daily life are still with you today? Many have disappeared. Some moved away. Some became strangers. Some relationships slowly faded without a fight. Others ended in painful betrayal. Some people were taken home to be with the Lord. Life changes constantly. One moment you're surrounded by friends. The next you're sitting alone wondering where everyone went. This isn't unique to you. Even in the Bible, people experience separation. Abraham left his homeland. Joseph was separated from his family. Moses left Egypt. David spent years hiding in caves. Naomi lost her husband and sons. Paul traveled from city to city, leaving churches and companions behind. God's people have always walked through seasons of loss, yet through every change, God remained faithful. One of the hardest truths to accept is this: not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay forever. Some people are blessings, some people are lessons, some are assignments, some are only there for a season. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, notice, God didn't say every relationship lasts forever. Everything has a season. Sometimes we desperately hold on to people that God is gently removing. Why? Because he sees what we cannot. We only see today's emotions. God sees tomorrow's consequences. Sometimes he removes people who would have distracted you. Sometimes he removes people who would have hurt you. Sometimes he removes people because they have completed their purpose in your life. And sometimes he removes you from people because he loves you too much to leave you where you are. Many people believe they're abandoned because something is wrong with them. But remember Jesus. Crowds followed him when he performed miracles. Thousands gathered when he multiplied bread. People shouted his praises. Yet when suffering came, many disappeared. One disciple betrayed him. Another denied him 3 times. Most fled in fear. If even Jesus experienced people walking away, we shouldn't be surprised when it happens to us. Sometimes people leave not because God abandoned you, but because he is teaching you to depend on him more than on people. There is perhaps no pain greater than losing someone you love. No words can fully heal that wound, whether it is a parent, a spouse, a child, a sibling, or a dear friend. The silence they leave behind feels overwhelming. Even Jesus understood grief. When Lazarus died, Jesus wept. The Son of God cried. That tells us something beautiful. God is not distant from our pain. He enters it with us. Psalm 34:18 says, notice, it doesn't say God only comes after the pain. It says he is close during it. Sometimes, when you feel most alone, God is actually closest. Have you ever moved somewhere completely new? New school, new job, new church, new country, new city. Everything feels unfamiliar. Everyone already has friends. You wonder, Will I ever belong here? The Bible is filled with people who started over. Abraham left everything familiar. Joseph became a stranger in Egypt. Daniel lived in Babylon. Ruth entered Bethlehem knowing almost no one. Yet every new beginning became the place where God revealed his purpose. Sometimes God moves us physically, but also because he wants to move us spiritually. The place where you feel like a stranger today may become the place where your greatest testimony begins tomorrow. And also, think about this. Right now, somewhere in the world, there are people praying. They have no idea you exist. And yet, months from now or years from now, God may bring your lives together. A future best friend, a future mentor, a future business partner, a future church family, someone who will encourage your faith, someone whose life you'll completely change. You don't know them, they don't know you, but God knows both of you. He's arranging the meeting at exactly the right time. Nothing surprises him. Think about how many people exist in the world. Billions. Yet somehow you crossed paths with certain people. You met specific teachers, specific friends, specific co-workers, specific neighbors, specific strangers who changed your life with just one conversation. Was it coincidence? The Bible suggests otherwise. We think we're making random decisions, but God is quietly directing our paths. That coffee shop, that delayed flight, that unexpected phone call, that invitation you almost declined. Sometimes God uses ordinary moments to produce extraordinary miracles. Years later, you realize, if that hadn't happened, I never would have met this person. I never would have found this opportunity. I never would have discovered God's purpose. We become disappointed when doors close, but imagine if every door opened. How many wrong relationships would we enter? How many dangerous situations would we face? How many poor decisions would change our lives forever? Sometimes unanswered prayers are actually answered prayers. God simply answered no, because he loved you enough to protect you, like a parent taking a sharp knife away from a child. The child cries, the parent smiles, because love sometimes says no. God sees traps that we cannot. He knows conversations that would have destroyed us, relationships that would have broken us, opportunities that only looked good from a distance. He closes doors because he is guarding our future. Joseph spent years in prison. David waited years before becoming king. Abraham waited decades for Isaac. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness. From a human perspective, it looked like God was late, but God was never late. He was preparing everything. If Joseph had become ruler too early, he wouldn't have been ready. If David became king immediately, Israel wouldn't have accepted him. God isn't only preparing your blessing, he's preparing you for the blessing. There are countless dangers God has already rescued you from without you even knowing. The accident that almost happened, the friendship that never developed, the investment you never made, the road you decided not to take, the job you didn't get, the relationship that ended. You may never know how many disasters God quietly prevented. One day in heaven, perhaps we'll finally understand. Until then, faith trusts even without answers. One of the greatest promises in Scripture says, so let's trust in his doings and surrender our lives to his ultimate guidance.